So I'm David Hochschild. I'm chair of the California Energy Commission. For those of you who don't know us, we are about a 700-person state agency headquartered in Sacramento, growing to nearly 1,000 people in the next year or two as we scale up our climate solutions. We're really focused on getting the state to 100% clean energy future while maintaining grid reliability. And I guess I'd like to just begin with that. I really think we're all in this together on reliability. It's something all of us need to own in every way to become an ambassador for energy conservation. The hours of 4 to 9 p.m. today, tomorrow, through the end of this heat dome, it's essential. We came about as close as you can come to having rotating outages on the grid last night, which we successfully avoided because of conservation and energy storage and the other assets we've added. And this is really a team effort. We got to stay on it and to get through this. Yesterday was the all-time record for energy demand in the state of California in our history, almost 52 gigawatts of demand. And it's the worst heat wave in September that we've ever had. So we're in a moment where we need to really do two things. We have to kind of grapple with the consequences of climate change, and this is a climate-driven heat event. Let's be clear about that. But at the same time, we need to press forward more aggressively than ever before on climate solutions. And many of the things we're doing now are really leading the world. So we have a lot to be proud of with our collective efforts on clean energy solutions, which is actually how Donna and I know each other from our days working on solar energy policy. I am overwhelmed with the new resources we have. Normally, the Energy Commission would get between $500 million and $1 billion in a typical budget year of new resources to promote clean energy solutions. This year, combined state and federal money, it's $10.5 billion. So I feel a little bit like the dog that caught the car, but we are trying to bring big new clean energy solutions and clean energy industries to scale. And I want to walk you through a little bit of the big picture of what's happening in energy and where we're headed and how we're going to get to 100% clean energy, and then share a little more details on offshore wind, and then be happy to open it up for questions. So let's go to the next slide. And there we go. So as you all know, California adopted in 2018 the mandate to get to 100% clean energy grid by 2045. Hawaii was actually the first state to do that in 2015, but California doing it really changed the game. And now we have 21 states that have adopted 100% clean energy standard. President Biden has adopted that as the national goal by 2035, an even more aggressive goal. We just increased the requirements to now, we're requiring 90% clean electricity, clean carbon-free electricity by 2035 and 95% by 2040. But the target remains the same for the end goal, which is 100% by 2045. I would say, you know, the last 5% doesn't matter that much. It's sort of the most costly and least important of the portfolio. Just getting to 90%, 95%, those are hugely significant. And one thing we're really gratified about is the passage of the IRA last month hugely advantages California. We're the single biggest beneficiary of those tax credits. So we just got a decade's worth of tax credits for solar, for wind, for geothermal, for energy storage, standalone energy storage, for electric vehicles, electric heat pump technology, and really virtually every one of those industries, we're the largest market in the United States. And so that is going to be great news for ratepayers. It's going to really reduce the cost as we scale up these solutions. And when I say clean electricity, I want to be clear, we're still defining renewables, which has a statutory definition, which includes hydro that's smaller than 30 megawatts and various other resources. But clean resources, we are including in that incumbent large hydro and incumbent nuclear to the extent that Diablo stays online for a few more years. So basically, we're talking about carbon-free electricity, and it's important to recognize we're already majority carbon-free electricity today on the grid. And that's a nice thing when you get an electric car or an electric heat pump for your house and you move beyond natural gas, those devices get cleaner every year as the grid continues to clean up. And this is a phenomenon that's happening not just in California, but across the country. You know, more coal got shut down under Trump than under Obama just because of market forces. And we should take a lot of credit for that. California is the birthplace of solar and the birthplace of wind and the birthplace of energy storage, electric vehicles. And these technologies really grew because of our R&D investments and our policies. So I think a lot of what we're doing here is really a postcard from the future for the rest of the country and the world. Let's go to the next slide. The thing that goes along with 100% clean energy is what I'd call the electrification of almost everything. And it's underway, you know, particularly in the transportation sector. We're adding nearly 1,000 electric vehicles a day to the roads in California. Last year, EVs were our #1 export. We have 43 companies manufacturing electric vehicles, electric vehicle infrastructure in the state, including, of course, Tesla, which employs 40,000 people, but also companies like Proterra and BYD making electric buses, Zero Motorcycles, you know, making electric motorcycles, electric bicycles, scooters, and then outside the transportation sector as well, great momentum we're seeing in the building sector now. We're requiring through code a lot more electric heat pumps. We have a statewide goal to get to 6 million electric heat pumps by 2030. And so all of this means actually more renewable energy as we develop the resources to provide this clean electricity. And one of the goals here is to have everything that connects to the grid also be a good citizen of the grid. And what I mean by that is be intelligent about when we are using electricity and timing the charging optimally and that kind of thing to help support grid reliability. Next slide. This is a picture taken at the signing ceremony with the governor for the executive order on electric vehicles. This is, I think, one of the most significant things that the governor has done. Incredibly bold and brave and visionary to mandate that 100% of new vehicle sales by 2035 be zero emission. CARB just enshrined that in their regs last week. And, you know, it's worth noting, again, the power we have as the 5th largest economy in the world with 40 million people. When we do this, it moves markets, it moves industries. You know, General Motors announced just a few months after this executive order was signed, they're moving entirely to electric vehicles by 2035. You know, every major OEM in the market today globally that's making vehicles is making electric models. There's not a single automaker that's not doing electric, and this is the future. And California really has been driving that. So we're today just over 16% of new vehicle sales being electric, but ramping up quickly as we press forward here. Next slide. Offshore wind, of course, is something we're going to be working together on closely. And the governor's been a big champion of this, and we're excited for what we can do. I will say, you know, one of the things to keep in mind here is that the big difference between the shelf on the West Coast and the East Coast is the East Coast is a shallow water shelf. So the first offshore wind project in the United States was installed in Rhode Island. I visited that site. Those turbines, the foundation goes directly into the seabed. We have a different circumstance here where we're going to be using principally floating offshore wind turbines. I have a few slides and can get into that in more detail as we go through, but that's what we're looking at. Go ahead, next slide. So I did a visit last November to learn about offshore wind installations that are happening in Europe. Europe is way ahead of the United States on this. The largest floating wind project in the world is in Aberdeen, Scotland, right in front of Trump's golf course, funnily enough. And then there's another one in Portugal. Both facilities are about 10 miles offshore. And what is really amazing when you see these is you can't actually tell that the floating wind projects are actually floating. They're tethered to the seafloor with 3 high tension cables. They're incredibly stable in high seas. So they operate very, very similar to the fixed bottom installations. And that's really a good thing. It really opens up the possibility for us, because if that didn't exist, we wouldn't be able to do offshore wind here. But we have a lot to learn, in particular Denmark, where I spent quite a bit of time. They have 500 offshore wind turbines installed. They're actually repowering the old turbines and putting in the new generation now, and was able to see those facilities and also to learn about the port upgrades that they're doing to accommodate all that activity and how the maintenance works. A lot of evolution in the maintenance cycles of these turbines. So the nacelle, which is up in the top of the turbine, where all of the machinery is, they're doing now remote servicing. So they have robotic servicing inside, and a typical wind turbine would be serviced twice a day twice a year for 2 days each by a 2-person crew. Now they're not having to service for like 5 years because of the robotics. So all this is helping drive down costs and so on. And we will be doing a fact-finding tour, which I believe Kate is joining from the Coastal Commission and a bunch of other sister agency, Lands Commission, as well as EJ, labor representatives, fisheries, and others later this month to go do a tour of these installations and learn about the port upgrades and some of the environmental issues, because they're way ahead of us. We are talking about, because we set a 25 gigawatt goal, that represents over $100 billion of investment. And so we really want to be smart about moving forward together and not miss the lessons that there are from other countries there. Okay, next slide. So just a little image of some of the different technology options that are available for offshore wind. There's the spar technology you can see, where you have a ballasted spar on the left. The most common option was this tripod that is sort of floating basically with these 3 metal pontoons, again tethered with the 3 high tension cables, and then a different model where the structure is really subsea there. So time will tell which of these becomes prevalent. The ones that I saw were all the version in the middle there, and the scale right now, they're at 10 megawatts in size, but growing. One of the things that is promising as well is the scale of the turbines is getting larger. That does drive down costs. It means less maintenance and lower costs for ratepayers, and as they're figuring out how to deploy these things. One of the things that constrains the size of a wind turbine on land is the ability of the blade to fit on a truck. When you do the installation offshore, you can actually do the fabrication right adjacent to the port, and it can just be loaded onto a ship, which allows larger and larger turbine size. So one of the issues we're looking at closely would be avian impacts. Obviously, the further offshore you get, the lower those become. The zones that we're doing here in California to begin with, there's 2 zones in basically the North Coast and the Central Coast, as 583 square miles altogether. And those zones don't begin until 20 miles offshore. So, and they extend to basically 30. So some significant distance from the shore, which is pretty different than you'd see on the East Coast of the US. The Rhode Island installation is just 3 miles offshore. Most of what I toured in Europe was closer to 10 miles. So that's a big kind of defining difference for us. Okay, next slide. As you can see, some of the next steps we have coming up here. We've set the goal this summer, and I want to thank the Coastal Commission for all your collaboration and engagement on that. And then we will be doing a permitting roadmap and a strategic plan. My colleague, Commissioner Courtney Vaccaro, is on point for those. And we're going to be doing sometime early in the new year a sort of implementation symposium, and we would love to have participation from the Coastal Commission on that as we look at how to do barrier busting and all of the steps necessary to be successful in this and deal with all the attendant issues that come with this. Okay, Okay, next slide. As I mentioned, the goal is really up to 5 gigs, 2 to 5 gigs by 2030, and then 25 gigs by 2045. Next slide. I want to just do a quick tour of some of the other resources so you have some sense of where offshore wind fits in our clean energy portfolio. We are geographically blessed in many ways in California, obviously having a huge coastal resource that you're charged with protecting is one of the most amazing resources, but also we are very fortunate to have significant geothermal resource. So we have really the largest geothermal resource in the United States. This is the geysers up in Lake County and Napa County, representing about a gigawatt of power. So that's enough power to provide for a city, say, the size of San Francisco. So we'll just do a quick tour, next slide, through some of the other clean energy resources that are providing electricity. Rooftop solar, which is an issue that Donna and I have worked on closely for many moons, is a big resource here in California. We have about 1.5 million solar roofs. We're adding about 400 a day. This is the largest solar roof in the world. This is the Apple headquarters. I was on the phone with them yesterday. They were helping us with the grid reliability and dialing down load during the peak hours. But 17 megawatt solar roof. Just for those of you who haven't been to that building, to give you a sense of the scale, it's 1 mile to walk around that hallway. And the size of that donut hole, you can take the entire 49ers stadium and put it in the middle. Not that you want to do that because they filled the middle there with fruit trees, which is a great thing. I had major building envy when I went to do this this building tour. Next slide. Of course, ground-mounted PV is one of the big resources in California, and a lot of innovation and cost reduction happening. Just to give you a sense of scale, when this was installed, it was the world's largest thin film solar PV project. Just over the course of the installation of this project, all this innovation happened. When they started the project, every single solar panel had an aluminum frame. By the end of the project, they had figured out how to eliminate the aluminum frame. The efficiency on the solar panels when they started was not high enough to justify being on a horizontal single axis tracker, which takes more expense. But by the end, they got the efficiency of the panel up to justify everything being on tracking. They graded this site. They now no longer need to do that. They found more environmentally benign ways to install. So just all this innovation driving it. And now solar has become the single lowest cost source of electric generation in the market, cheaper than coal, cheaper than nuclear, cheaper than gas, and a lot more innovation still to come. Next slide. Battery storage has been a big one for us as well. The world's largest battery storage project is at Moss Landing. I just visited that. There's a couple different installations there. This is inside the old power plant. But there's one adjacent that's a Tesla project, and they're scaling this facility up to about 2,500 megawatts over the next few years. That's again bigger than Diablo Canyon. So incredible momentum there. And just to give you a sense of scale, we dispatched yesterday 3,300 megawatts total from our energy storage fleet. That is a 15x increase from what we had interconnected 3 years ago. So incredible growth there. And as we go to an all renewables, all carbon-free resource portfolio, energy storage is especially important to take that solar and wind and be able to dispatch it when you need it. Next slide. And this just shows that we're going to be close to 4 gigs by the end of the year. As I mentioned, we're at about 3,300 today. Next slide. One of the visions that we have around energy storage is really going upstream to a vision we're calling Lithium Valley, which is really as we move beyond the fossil fuel economy, we'll transition to what I call the lithium economy. And lithium is the raw material for batteries. I think lithium ion, there's many chemistries, but I think lithium ion is here to stay. I think it's very analogous to the role of silicon in the solar industry. where it's really the workhorse technology. We have a massive lithium reserve that's about a mile below the Salton Sea. Today, we have about a dozen geothermal power plants that cycle that superheated geothermal brine to create electricity. And there are now technologies that can withdraw lithium from that geothermal brine. It's just 250 parts per million. The rest gets pumped back underground to the reserve. It is by far the lowest impact way to produce lithium that exists in the world. Most of the world's lithium today that we use in the United States and in California is imported from 4 countries: Chile and Argentina, and Australia and China. In Australia and China, it's hard rock mining. In Chile and Argentina, it's these massive evaporation ponds that have a footprint. And just to be clear, I mean, there is an environmental footprint for every form of energy, including for wind, including for solar, but the relative difference matters a lot. And I'd say generally, every form of renewable generation is superior in its footprint than the fossil fuel economy. And so we have basically the greenest lithium resource in the world, just in terms of having a very small footprint. And it's a massive reserve. It's enough to meet about 1/3 of the global market today. So we're focused on building that out. We've been funding lithium pilot projects and lithium recovery. And then the vision is really to attract back to California the missing link, which is cathode manufacturing, battery manufacturing. We have $250 million for grants for EV and for battery manufacturing that we're going to be deploying here. We have already the largest market in the United States for electric vehicles and for energy storage, and we have the raw material, but we don't have that missing link. And this is a core part of the governor's vision, and what we're trying to make happen at the Energy Commission in partnership with our allies is to build back that manufacturing sector and do it here at home. We're funding a whole bunch of next generation lithium ion technologies. Incredibly exciting when you look at core shell, Sepion, Sparks, Blue Current, and many others. What's happening is the energy density of the batteries is getting better, the safety is improving, and the cost is coming down. So we're looking at as much as 40% energy density improvement. So what that means, if you have a Chevy Bolt, say I've been driving a Chevy Bolt for 4.5 years now, its range is 259 miles, 40% energy, you're talking about like a 400-mile range vehicle. And, right now you can buy a 400-mile range vehicle, or you can buy a more affordable EV, but you can't buy both. And so this really enables that. So, what the direction that things are going, I would say the way to characterize it is the envelope of possibility for electrification is expanding substantially, all the way into things you never would have thought of, like aircraft. We just visited Joby, which is a company in Monterey that has raised $2 billion, hired 1,300 people. They have a fully operational 5-seat electric aircraft, vertical takeoff. Things like trucking, again, a lot of skepticism that electric would ever go into that sector, that's going to happen. So anyways, a lot of momentum on this, and this will be a major focus for us going forward. Next slide. We're also doing a lot with microgrids and with tribes. We have a whole focus on tribal energy resilience and energy sovereignty. This is a tribe called the Blue Lake Rancheria up in Humboldt County. They had a first aid clinic that was losing power. The electric system up there was shutting down 4 or 5 times a year. We installed a battery and solar microgrid. And not long after it was installed, there was a fire, the transmission went out, and they didn't even notice because the light stayed on because of the microgrid. So we've done 7 of these tribal energy microgrids, and we'll be doing more to come. But that's an important part of our renewable goals as we build out the clean energy grid to also ensure resilience, particularly for disadvantaged communities, remote communities. That's a big goal for us. Next slide. So building decarbonization, energy efficiency, this is a great story. When the Energy Commission was founded 45 years ago, we tracked roughly even with the United States in terms of energy consumption per capita. And then we got the authority to set energy efficiency standards, which we've done very aggressively on everything from televisions, where we cut the energy use in half, to lighting, where we just banned the incandescent light bulb. We're requiring high color rendition LEDs and all the rest. And now we're using, roughly half the energy per capita compared to the rest of the United States. But many of our energy standards are so significant that they de facto become national standards, because when you set a lighting standard for a market as large as ours, the manufacturers don't actually want to run one line for California, one line for the rest of the US. So we actually have, I think, benefits beyond our state's borders. But that's an important part of this, because this is the first thing you want to do before you build out renewables, before you do offshore wind or any renewables, is conserve first and be efficient first. And so we're really leading the world on many of our efficiency standards across all appliances and across new construction. Next slide. So I mentioned this, be a good citizen of the grid, and we anticipate, basically requiring many of the appliances that are getting interconnected now to have features that make it really easy to do the right thing and shift load. And so I think a good way to think about it, up until now, the model has been, energy demand drives energy generation. You go turn on a factory, and then a gas power plant cycles up to meet that need. For some subset of that, it's going to flip, and you'll have renewable generation when the wind is blowing, when the sun is shining, and you can elect when you're optimized to charge a fleet of vehicles, when you pre-cool buildings, when you charge up your fleet of energy storage, and the rest of it. And so that's the new model. Next slide. And that may be it. So anyway, I really wanted to close by thanking you, Donna, again, for all your work, and Kate and all the rest of the team at the Coastal Commission. We're excited to partner with you on offshore wind and bringing this vision to reality. And just to close, we are not through this heat storm yet. I really want to ask everyone to lean in through your networks, through your friends and family, your colleagues. Conservation between 4 to 9 tonight and tomorrow through this heat storm is essential. We came as close as it is possible to come to having to do rotating outages last night. And so let's get through this together. And then I think if we can make it through this week, I think we're good until next summer. From a reliability perspective, we'll have a lot more time to add many more preferred resources and build some cushion for next summer. So anyways, stop it. I'm happy to stop there and take any questions.
Thank you so much, David. That was an excellent presentation, really comprehensive. So what I'm going to do is turn it over to questions from commissioners, unless Mr. Ainsworth, I saw you're good. Okay. Any questions from commissioners? Yes. Vice Chair Hart.
Thank you so much. I just wanted to express my appreciation, Mr. Hochschild, for being here. That was just absolutely riveting, from my opinion, and I think everyone would agree, given what the state's been going through and how close we came to rotating blackouts and the impact of those at my house, which is normally in the fog belt. Normally it would be around 70 degrees, 75 degrees, and it was up to almost 110 degrees in coastal Northern California. It's just, so of course, to not have access to air conditioning during that kind of a heat event, to have all your power turned off could be life-threatening for so many people. So we're so grateful to the work of the Energy Commission. With regard to my question, it's on the lithium. I was hoping that you could talk just for a minute about, is lithium a renewable source, that to create batteries, or could you just talk just a bit more about that? Because I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, so great question. And first of all, just to your first point, I absolutely believe like electricity should be treated like an essential resource, which it is. We need it for our health, we need it for air conditioning, we need it for for lighting, for medical equipment. And so it's kind of like water that way. You can't do without it. Long term, I believe it is an absolutely solvable problem to have fully reliable grid. What we're dealing with right now are supply chain challenges and some other delays that have slowed the interconnection and installation of sufficient resources. But we're playing catch up, and we're going to get there. So I'm very optimistic actually about our ability to have, even through extreme weather events, a fully reliable grid. I mean, there's nothing about that challenge that is not solvable. So lithium absolutely is recyclable and reusable. Typically, we advocate before it gets recycled that it gets reused. So just to give you an example, some of the stuff we're funding, there's a project out of UC Davis that is taking used EV batteries. So a typical EV battery might last 8 to 10 years. It is still, at the end of 10 years, it still works, but it might be down to say 70% or 75% of its nameplate rating, which, might not work for you in terms of range, but that vehicle still, those batteries still have a long life. So what they're doing is taking used EV batteries, repurposing them into shipping containers, and making them backup energy storage in buildings, right? Which then can have another life of 10, 15 years in that capacity, and then can get recycled. And so the goal really is to both ramp up lithium development. We will need a lot more lithium. I want to be clear about that, but also to ramp up lithium recovery, reuse, and recycling, and ultimately end up with 100% circular economy, where we're actually not sending any lithium-ion batteries into landfill. And I want to be clear, we have a long way to go right now. I mean, I think most batteries, certainly for the smaller, electric bikes and so forth, are getting landfilled today. So that's something with Cal Recycle and the PUC we're working on, but that's the vision I would see, is sort of, transition to electric, then reuse and repurpose first, and then recycle finally, and with the goal of 100% recycling at the end of the day.
Thank you so much. Okay, we're going to move to public comment. There's one person.
Sorry. I have a question.
I'm sorry.
Zoom. Commissioners on Zoom.
I was just going to say, and then I'm going to come back to commissioners, because I can see that Commissioner Rice and Commissioner Escalante have their hands up for questions. So we're going to go to public comment first, and then back for questions for the chair. Go ahead, Val.
Okay, our one speaker on this item is Manley McNinch. You should be in the panelists if you would like to unmute yourself and turn your camera on.
Good morning. How's everyone doing today? Just wanted to thank you for all the hard work that you're doing, and let you know that the Southwest Carpenters Union are fully behind all the work that's going on. And you have our full support to make sure all of the offshore and renewable energy comes to market as soon as possible. And just wanted to point out that going forward, there's a lot of the developers and everything that we're working with. We need to make sure that everyone that's on board out there realizes that the Southwest Carpenters Union are not a part of the building trades. We're a separate entity. We work alone. We work with the trades on projects, but any kind of negotiating, bargaining, anything like that might be going on for the offshore, we need to deal directly with the developers ourselves. And again, anything we can do to help bring this new energy to market, we're here to help do it. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. McNinch. And now we're going to go to Commissioner Rice and then Commissioner Escalante.
Great, thank you. Mr. Hochschild, that was really an excellent presentation. I sit on our CCA up here in Marin County. And so I consider myself very much a lay person, but with just a little bit of more understanding of the whole industry, the energy industry, and especially on the electrical front. So I just want to say, not only was your presentation just excellent, but also it was not only hopeful, it was expressing real feasibility And that's really important, I think, for us all to hear and to know that there is a path forward and it is feasible. So I just had a couple questions, and I may have missed this. I was just curious about, when you look at the entire energy portfolio, what our target is ultimately, the mix, the role of large hydro, and I saw it increasing over time in the one graph that you showed, but I was sort of surprised about that. And I wonder if you could just speak a little bit more about large hydro. And then related to that, on the storage side of things, which I think actually you have to consider storage as part of the entire energy portfolio ultimately. And it sounded like you thought we were on track for getting to the storage we needed to get to, but I just wondered if you could speak to the ultimate target for how much storage we need, and are we on the right timeline for getting there in terms of meeting those 2045 goals?
Yeah, well, thank you, Commissioner, for the question. No, so just to be clear, I don't actually see any new large hydro coming into the
Okay.
portfolio. What I was talking about is incumbent large hydro counting as part of the resource. We have not traditionally counted hydro that's 30 megawatts and up as a renewable resource. In fact, that's prohibited by law. We count 30 and below for purposes when we're tallying what the renewable energy numbers are. And I think nuclear is in the same category. We don't count that as renewable, but it is carbon free. So for purposes of tallying the 100%, which is not a renewable goal, that's a carbon free goal, we would count both large hydro and nuclear. We still have to make a formal determination on that, but that's kind of where it's tracking. Then energy storage, I mean, what's going on, I mentioned the kind of electrification of almost everything. We're going to basically triple electric demand in California by mid-century. And so that's a good thing from an emissions perspective, because this is how we move beyond fossil fuels. But that does, present a lot of challenges with the grid. And one of the essential goals of the grid is diversity of renewable supply. So I come out of the solar industry. That's how Don and I know each other. I'm super excited about the potential of solar and making, rooftop solar in every home and building. We're actually now requiring that on every single new building now. We're getting about a gigawatt every 2 years just from our energy code and new construction. But that's not enough. And we actually don't want 100% of the energy being solar. We want wind on land. We want geothermal. We want offshore wind. We want energy storage. We want a really diverse supply. And that actually gives us more resilience in itself. And one interesting thing, if you look at the generation portfolio, say of offshore wind, it is like the perfect yin yang complement to solar. So when solar is ramping down, and by the way, the reason our peak, a little interesting set. So the hours we're worried about now are 4 to 9. When Donna and I started working together 15 years ago, we were worried about midday. The reason midday is not a problem anymore is because we have so much solar, right? We've actually become a victim of our own success. So we're now worried about the ramp when solar is going down. How do we meet that need? And offshore wind is ramping up during those hours. It's like the perfect complement. And one thing I think about a lot, I come from San Francisco. I'm a coastal kid. I was born in Santa Cruz, grew up in San Francisco. Couldn't be more grateful for all the amazing work you guys are doing to protect our incredible coast. But in my hometown, we had 2 power plants, and they were not in the wealthy neighborhoods. They were in Bayview, Hunters Point, Potrero. And, I'm very mindful there are justice issues associated with energy generation. 40% of our gas fleet is in low-income neighborhoods. And how do we retire those? We actually have to have other clean resources, and offshore wind being one of the biggest ones. So that's really one of the central goals, to have diversity as we scale up.
Thank you so much. Commissioner Escalante.
Thank you, Chair Brownsie. And through the chair, I'd like to first thank Commissioner Hochschild for such an incredible presentation. I think I'm going to go back and watch it again even more carefully, just so I can remember all those numbers. And I appreciate my fellow commissioners' questions and comments. I really sort of hear Commissioner Hart's concerns and, and of course, Commissioner Hart's perception of hope in your presentation. And I do agree. I see that as well. I just want to focus on some, a couple of things that you've been talking about. First, I guess, jumping off from the issue of diversity in our energy portfolio. I'm assuming that, as we're looking forward, even large hydro is going to be less reliable, right? Because we're going to go through extreme, times of drought, and then, maybe some extreme times of water. So I figure that, I guess my first question, I have 3 questions. My first question for David is, are you assuming that hydro is also going to decrease to a significant percentage? Or are we still sort of hoping that there will be some stability in that system?
Yeah, no, we're in a drought. I mean, my philosophy is going into these things, assume the worst case scenario, right? And there's 2 countries I think we have a lot to learn from on the drought, which is Australia and Israel. And Australia had a 14-year drought. They got way ahead of us on conservation, and things like rainwater collection cisterns on half the roofs there, because of that. And we have a lot to learn there. I'm definitely assuming major hits to our reservoirs. And so from my perspective, this is yet more reason to invest in and support other forms of energy storage besides hydro. So one of the things that we're doing this year, I'm thrilled. As I said, I feel like the dog that caught the car, because we were putting out all these requests and I didn't know that like we'd have this incredible surplus. But we got $380 million just for long duration energy storage chemistries. So when I was talking about the 3,300 megawatts we dispatched yesterday for storage, that's all 4-hour lithium ion. Long duration, we're talking about 8 to 100-hour dispatch. So this is really different chemistry. So like Form Energy, which is an iron air technology, has a really crappy round trip efficiency. So typically, like with lithium ion, you might lose 10 to 15% on the round charging and discharging. This is closer to like 50%, but it doesn't matter because it's so much cheaper than lithium ion. We actually have a surplus of renewables during the middle of the day. That's part of the story people forget. We have too much energy during the middle of the day and surplus wind. So we're actually curtailing renewables almost every day. And the storage piece really helps with that and helps provide resilience. And it's not subject to drought, right? We're not depending on there being water or not. And so we are going to get, of that 380 million, I'm going to get almost 100 million out the door by next month. So these are projects we're going to get interconnected to the grid, by next summer. It's really August, September every year that we're worried about for grid reliability. And I think that's a smart thing to do. I mean, there are obviously other pumped hydro facilities. We have some in California, including Helms and others. But I think there's a lot of promise in these long duration storage chemistries that are not as vulnerable to drought as you'd see in the hydro.
I'm glad to hear that, Commissioner. I'm sorry, through the chair, I just have a couple more questions since we have Commissioner Hochschild here, held hostage by the Zoom. So when you're talking about grid, we're talking about grid reliability and sort of the future of the grid, and you're talking about peak hours and the middle of the day. Wind is going to come in and offset some of that, but is it going to be? Are we going to get off our dependence in some other states during some, because we've been talking about sort of the integration of the Western grid with the other states that are also facing a lot of these difficulties with climate and resources. So what do you see our future in terms of the broader picture? Since I'm assuming that, however we do wind, it's not going to be probably enough and to offset the need in the state as it grows. So how do you see that forward? And then I guess I'll add my last question is that the Coastal Commission has incredible EJ policy that really helps guide us in our decisions. And I'm wondering if your commission has something like that. I haven't looked at the website or anything, so I just wanted to sort of, since you've been talking about.
Let me take the last question first. We are fully committed to lifting up the communities that have been hardest hit by pollution. We're doing that heavily through our investments. So our grant making today, for example, for electric vehicle charging, where we're putting in about $3.7 billion into EV charging, half of that's going to disadvantaged and low-income communities. Our clean energy R&D program, the EPIC program, where we're doing next generation clean technology demonstration projects. 70% of those are going to low income disadvantaged communities. And that's a commitment we're making across the commission. And I would say just generally clean energy itself, the people who benefit from that the most are low income communities, because the dirtiest facilities that get retired when we're successful are predominantly in low income facilities. And our issue is just moving it faster. I want to see gas plants in low income communities get retired first. I can't do that until we have enough assets, online. So we're pushing as hard as we can, on that question. Then to your first question on wind and solar, one thing to keep in mind, even if in your county wind and solar may not be generating, they're almost certainly generating in other parts of the state. And that's one of the beauties of having a network system. And I think it's a good thing to be interconnected to the rest of the West and to be able to make use of surplus renewables in other states. And when we have surplus renewables in the day, to be able to sell that. So actually one of the fastest ways to shut down the remaining coal fleet in the West is to force them to compete with zero marginal cost renewables in California, right? Which you can either curtail that or you can sell it. So the question of grid regionalization, is a question that's above my pay grade. That's a vote the legislature and the governor will have to contend with and work through. I will say generally the trend across the United States is toward regionalization because of costs. And I think some of the concerns about this issue when it last came up under Governor Brown, the landscape has changed. We had a very hostile anti-renewables FERC. That's changed. We have a pro-renewables FERC. We didn't have 100% clean energy standards throughout the West. Now we do. And so some of the risk that we might go backwards on clean energy has been alleviated. And, I think, just speaking for myself, I think there's, real resilience and also ratepayer benefits to having, a closer relationship with the rest of the West. It's just, there's an efficiency that you gain. But I think the number one goal from, a climate perspective, we are not going to go backwards, and that would be unacceptable in any scenario. But the reality is, like, renewable generation is happening somewhere in the US all the time, and whether it's geothermal or wind or solar, it's happening. We want to make use of that.
Through the chair, thank you so much. I will let you go but put a pin on it so that we can always continue a conversation about how
Thank
we're
you,
going to do
Commissioner.
this in the
Yeah,
future.
my
Thank you so
pleasure.
much.
David, I have a couple questions and comments. First of all, excellent presentation. And, for the first time in a long time, I feel like climate issues are really being addressed, right, in this substantial way in terms of the focus in this last year by the Biden administration, the Newsom administration, on renewables and on, really addressing these core important issues. And luckily with the money that we have right now. Just a couple questions regarding, as you know, and I want to just thank you for the comments that you made with respect to, the work that the Coastal Commission does. And I feel like there's the timing is perfect, right? For you at the Energy Commission, me here at the Coastal Commission, but mostly I know our staffs have formed this collaborative relationship, particularly around offshore wind. And I just want to thank you for your leadership and your staff with respect to that. And I think that what has been established is a very successful model of really expediting these projects. And so I was hoping that, given the schedule of 5 gigawatts of offshore wind, up to 25 gigawatts of offshore wind, utilizing that process, how do you see that kind of rolling out?
Well, as I said, we want to see that happen as fast as humanly possible. There's currently 32 different permits that are required to develop an offshore wind project in California. And that's something we really got to work through and focus on intensively. The very first step is getting the offshore wind lease sale done this fall. And so that's a sort of precondition. But this is basically a landmark year for offshore wind, setting the official state goal, and the governor giving the green light, and getting the lease sale done. And then it really all becomes implementation. And, we want to work closely with you guys. As I mentioned, Commissioner Vaquero and I are going to be doing this implementation symposium early in the new year, and get into the details of how we can work through that. So I would say that's that's kind of the work ahead of us. I think we are exiting a period of like asking, should we be going bold on clean energy? And we're really entering what I would call the great implementation. And I think it's exciting. It's where I want to be. I think the debate is over. It's all about execution now. And I do feel a sense of hope, and I'm glad several of you used that word. I feel that. And, I think we should never forget how powerful we are as a state. I mean, the electric vehicle industry would not exist but for California policy. The wind industry, the solar industry, the energy storage industry, the whole field of energy efficiency were all born here and scaled here. And, there's no way that the IRA passes with 10-year tax credits for all these things without California. I mean, we were the muscle behind that. We're the industry. And so I think we should all kind of approach this with a expansive sense of possibility. We're not playing small ball here. We're really going to be the mainstream sources of energy, and we got to do it and do it right. And I think, part of that means in some of the stuff, doing the process differently. I mentioned the Lithium Valley vision. One thing we're doing there, we're mindful of the harmful impacts that fossil fuel extraction has had, and also where those profits go. So we set up a Lithium Valley that's advising us. We've already passed and signed a lithium tax on the royalties, and that's going to go back in the local communities. And we're trying to do the model differently. But there's a quote that a friend sent to me that I was I don't know, just sometimes you see a quote and it just hits you. And so I made this like the signature on my email the other week, which is work as if you live in the early days of a new and better nation. And it stuck with me because I kind of feel that's where we are. That's the moment we're at. We have, I've been doing clean energy policy for 22 years. We have never had a decade's worth of tax credits. That's actually transformational at the federal level. And we've never had this level of focus and investment and surplus at the state level. And all those things come together, and then have, the leadership and all of you doing an amazing job. And, these are not glamour jobs, the commissioner jobs. There's no glamour at all. It's a grind. But we have incredible public servants, and just hearing the questions and engagements from you guys, I just feel so blessed to be in California, because I feel like what we can do here is actually the most important place for us to be, and just make the model work. So I do feel hope, and I'm excited to partner with you. And thank you, Donna, for having me today.
Well, we are just thrilled that you were able to join us. And just a few more comments, David. First of all, I loved what you just said, and it is an exciting time. And of course, the Coastal Commission wants to partner with the Energy Commission on this, on the wind implementation, as well as the offshore wind implementation. And just a quick question, because as you know, those peaker plants, the ones through cooling, happen to be in the coastal zone, several of them. And so when they're shut down, I just had two quick questions. One is, could they be sites for other renewable ventures? And also, in terms of storage, might we establish some protocols with respect to, like we have with wind, if those are going to be in the coastal zone? Because clearly, I heard your commitment to, coastal resources. And I know that one of the other great aspects of where we are right now in terms of accelerating our renewable energy portfolio in a really profound way is that we have a lot of history understanding how to balance coastal resources and then the stresses on biodiversity because of climate, and working smarter so that all of those elements are part of that package. What's your kind of reaction to that?
Well, just with respect to the OCC plants, I mean, those have to be a site-by-site process in partnership with you guys and the community and so on. But, where it can work, I'm a big supporter of energy storage. It is silent, it's clean, there's no emissions, and you're making use of the existing distribution and transmission infrastructure, which is significant. So, that is a great example. And Moss Landing, I just visited there. They're now the largest storage project in the world. And they're making use of that transmission, and that's been a great decision. So again, these have to be on a site-by-site basis, but where it makes sense, I think energy storage is incredibly low impact. You're not using water, there's no emissions, they're quiet, they are very, very low impact, and then you can make use of that transmission. So I think there's a real role there long term for that.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time and sharing your expertise with us and giving us a great, framing of the issues going forward in terms of the Energy Commission's energy goals and our work together in the future. We look forward to it, and in a hopeful way. So thank you so much, David.
Thank you so much.
It was
Keep up the good work.
fantastic.
All right. Cheers, guys.
Take care. Bye-bye. Okay. With that, let's see. It's almost 11 o'clock. Why don't we take a 10-minute break, and then we're going to return and we're going to hear the update on the prescribed fires. Okay? Thank you so much.